Welcome to the gardenshop.ie how to garden video. In this video I want to show you how to prepare different soil mixes for different purposes. In this video we want to show you 3 different soil mixes. The first one will be how to create a soil mix for seeds and seedlings. The second soil mix will be a soil mix for cuttings, and then the third soil mix will be a soil mix for container grown plants. So these 3 types of plants require different soil conditions. For cuttings, the soil should be particularly dry to prevent the roots from rotting in the soil, so it should have a good balance of sand or perlite in it. And then for container grown plants, such as plants you might see in a garden centre or stuff that you want to store in a pot, well, for that you could add quite a large amount of garden soil because they require larger pots. So we'll start anyway, and the first one I will do is a potting mix for seeds and seedlings. So when you're doing it, we have here a number of different pots. We have our 9 centimetre pots, which is a product available on the gardenshop.ie. You can grow cuttings inside this, or you can start your seeds and seedlings inside in a pot of this size. Alternatively, if we just zoom out here, we can see that we have our 24 seed tray packs, our 24 cell seed trays. That's great obviously for starting off seeds and seedlings. And you can also now get on the gardenshop.ie a propagator lid that fits perfectly over the seed trays and acts just to improve the conditions for seeds and seedlings to emerge. But anyway, back to what we want to do now, and it's quite simply a mix for doing a soil mix for your seeds and seedlings. It's very straightforward. For seeds and seedlings, all you need is, what we have here is peat moss. So you can see here we have just your general garden potting compost. You can see here it has a few fine little bits of twig in it. That's just kind of more of an organic mix of compost, which is grand for all sorts of seeds and seedlings. We also have here a perlite, which is our volcanic rock, which is a soil conditioner added to soil mixes. And again, this is to add air to the soil. And an alternative to perlite would just be a coarse sand, which we can see here. And this again also improves drainage and airflow in the soil. So there's the 3 different ingredients that we'll be talking about now in this first part of the video. So again, the soil mix that we want for seeds and seedlings is simply 2 parts compost and 1 part perlite. So I'm just going to do that now. I'm going to take 2 parts compost and now 1 part perlite. And now I'm just going to mix them together. And that's it prepared. That's simply it. So what you've got then is you've got the water holding capacity and nutrients that is found in the compost. And you also have within this mix the air retention and drainage abilities of the perlite in the one soil mix, creating the most ideal conditions for your seedlings. So I'm just going to now pour this out into one of our 9mm pots that we have, or 9 centimetre pots that we have here. Alternatively, you can use the 24 cell seed trays provided. It's a bit of a messy work here, sorry now. So whenever you're preparing a pot such as this one here, it's always best that you just fill it right to the very top. It looks neater when it's finished. I shouldn't talk about being neat because I've made quite a mess here. But that's perfect now. What you would next do is just moisten that, wet it slightly, and then sow your seed on it. Another great thing you can do with perlite after you've sown your seed is just to take a small handful of the perlite here and then just pour it over the top of your pots like this. So it's another use for the perlite, which is a product available on the gardenshop.ie. Now the advantage of adding the perlite to the surface of your planting your container like that is simply that the perlite that's already in the soil, improving the airflow, also acts now as a mulch on the surface of the soil keeping the soil a little bit warmer, stopping it from freezing over, but also retaining a little bit extra moisture in the soil, preventing evaporation. So that's our first mix. This is a mix for seeds and seedlings, and as I said, it is 2 parts compost and 1 part perlite. Okay. Now our second mix that we're going to do will be a mix for hardwood and softwood cuttings. Okay, so that's the next one. And in that now we want a more of a drier soil because because cuttings require a drier soil to prevent them from rotting. So what we want to do then in this case is just go for just 1 part compost and 1 part perlite or sand. But again, I'm just going to do the mix again with perlite. Okay. So that's the ratio there. So now I've only put 1 part compost and 1 part perlite. So what you'll find now is that there's a higher percentage of perlite in this mix, which you can certainly see there. Okay. Now I know that there won't be enough, so I'm just going to do the same handful again. 1 part compost, maybe a bit smaller this time, and the same amount of perlite again. So you get an exactly 50-50 ratio between compost and perlite for a hardwood and softwood cutting mix. So you can see there's quite a lot more perlite in this mixture. Okay, so what I'll do now is, instead of doing it outside, I'll just fill the pot with our mix. So exactly the same as we had done for the seedlings. The only difference here is that the ratio is different. It's now 1 part compost and 1 part perlite for your mix. So it's the same again. Whenever you're filling a pot such as this, it's always better, if you want to get it level, just to tap the side of the pot. Don't ever press down the compost. You're just going to knock all the air out of the soil, which is obviously important for developing roots and for keeping air in the soil. So that's all you want to do, just give it a tap on the side. And there we have our second mix prepared. This mix, 1 part compost, 1 part perlite, is an ideal potting mix for hardwood and softwood cuttings. Okay, so that's it, that's our second mix. Now our third mix that we want to show you is a mixture for containerized plants. And that's the sort of stuff you'll see growing in garden centres. And it's just the perfect pot size would be something like this. I think this is a 2 litre plant pot we have here. Okay, so what you want to do now is a different ratio altogether, and what we're just trying to create is the best conditions for plants that can sit in the soil and grow for a longer period of time. Now the ratio that we need here, we need 1 extra thing in this mix, and it is simply very simple, just garden soil. I just dug it out of the garden today. So that's all that is. It's just your average garden soil. In this case, this is quite a good loamy soil. It's nice texture in it, nice and crumbly. So that's a good soil that we have there. Now the ratio of your potting mix for a container plant will be, we're going to have 7 parts of your garden soil. We're going to have 3 parts compost, and we're going to have 2 parts either perlite or sand. And in this case, I'm going to just use sand, because what we want to go for when we're doing any containerized pots, if you're doing it on a large scale such as a garden centre, or you're maybe just setting up your own smaller garden selling plants nursery, you probably want to try and do it for as low as cost as possible. So what you probably need in that case, again, 7 parts garden soil, 3 parts compost, and 2 parts either sand or perlite. Okay, so I'm going to quickly put this mix together for you now. Okay, so I'm just going to do equal parts 7 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 7 parts of our garden soil. 3 parts compost, 1, 2, 3, and then 2 parts of our sand, 1, 2. So really the garden soil is going to bulk it out, you know. The garden compost or the potting compost is going to give us the moisture retention and also the extra bit of fertility. And then sand, just like the perlite, is there just to improve drainage, add air to the soil. So you can see now we have a great mix here, and it's similar to what you would see garden centre plant pots coming like. So just give it a bit more of a mix, and you can still see there up close you got, actually there's a bit of perlite from the last one that we did. That won't cause any harm, it's actually a benefit. So you can see a great consistency here between the sand, the compost and the garden soil all coming together to give you the best rooting mix or the best potting mix that you could hope for. So that's the mix. One last thing that you could add would be something like this here. It's a Growmore, a general multi-purpose plant food that you could actually add to your mix now. In this case, maybe 3 grams of it would be enough per small pot, okay? And this would continue to feed the plant in its container for a long period of time. So again, I'm just going to do this one last time to fill the plant pots. Okay, and just speed it up by pouring it in. Hopefully we'll have enough. If not, we can just make another mix to finish it off. So that's there. Again, you can see it's only half full, but it gives you an idea of the exact soil mix that you would require for growing pot plants in containers. Again, it's 7 parts garden soil, 3 parts compost and 2 parts sand or perlite, whichever you want to use. Again, recommend that you fill your pot to the top, but in this case you probably might be planting a small sapling plant into this, and you know, you can probably transplant a 10 centimeter sapling or seedling into this pot and let it develop into, you know, a medium-sized plant, which would be ideal you could sell on or grow in your own garden at a later point. So that's it. That's just a little demonstration on how to create soil mixes. So that's just a video from the garden shop that I